Booty sagging. Booty, why dost thou sag so? Does your X5 have a sagging booty? A booty that leans to one side or the other? Let's see how we can fix that. Alright, ladies and gents, so after the sagging booty for several months, we decided to go ahead and change this right rear, passenger side rear spring, airbag if you will. We're going to replace it with the Arnot A2642, which seems to be whatever. It seems to be pretty much the one that everybody goes with. So to save a little time here, I've already got the car jacked up. Got a jack stand under the rear suspension there. Do at your own risk. I'm comfortable with this. You do it however is comfortable for you. Here is the airbag, and I've got a slow leak in it. And sometimes it leaks, sometimes it doesn't, and that is just, you know, however the folds in here happen to be when the car is resting. Sometimes it'll leak and sometimes it'll seal. So you can see this blue line that carries air pressure from the compressor up into the top of the airbag. And if you follow that blue line all the way back to point of origin, it goes all the way over to here, under the passenger side seat, to a little valve right here that comes off of the compressor right there. So the idea here is I'm just going to take this electrical connector off and out of the way. Maybe I can do that right meow. And indeed I will. I'm on the front side of it now. We just got a little squeezy clip here that comes off, and then I'm going to take a little wrench. I'll figure out what size that is, take that off, let the pressure off that way, then we can take our spring out. As far as getting this cover off, what you see I've already got that off. No rocket science there, a few fasteners of different types. It's no big deal, and it's, I think, a little better way to do this. Okay, you've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these. These are 10 mil. Then you've got another 4 or 5 of these. These are 8 mil heads. And you've got, I think there was 4 of these I had to take out. These just pull out of these holes here. Just pull straight down with a pair of needle nose or whatever else you can get a hold of them with. There is an O-ring that goes on them right here. And that just goes on like so. Sometimes they fall off, sometimes they stay on the car. Okay, then you just can guide that panel out. It's no big deal. Probably took longer to find all the tools to take those fasteners off than it did to actually get the panel off. So let's go ahead and release the pressure on that blue line. So this is a 10 mil. Hooray, found one. Okay, and now you hear the pressure coming off of it. And you can let that bleed off if you want, or you can go ahead and take it off. Just be careful how you do it. Okay, and as that pressure bleeds off the front, you can actually see the spring going up. Alright, so I don't have any more air coming out. I did not remove this all the way, and I'm not going to. You just need to get in there enough to let the pressure off. Now, back on this side. So here's our new airbag spring. And one thing I noticed right away is how pliant the rubber is compared to the rubber on here, which, I mean, it looks like it, but it's hard. This is a 2013 and it's 2021. Time for it to go, I suppose. The directions, and I didn't know this, I thought it was just going to be remove the line, screw it back into the top of this airbag. But that's not what it says. It says that what we're going to do is take the air line off. We're going to slide this brass collar back. We're going to take that little internal collar completely off. Then we're going to slide the fitting or the external collar off as well, because the new one here, we're going to pull out that white plastic plug and we're just going to jam that blue line right into it. It's kind of like a PEX fitting, if you're familiar with that with plumbing. And I think that's pretty cool. So no tightening necessary up here. So now we just need to get this airbag loose from its perch, take the fitting off, and put the new one in. So if you look down on the bottom of this, you'll see that this is really just retained to the car with these two kind of force fit clips here. Got the little ridge on it, so you're gonna have to push these in when it's on the car with something. Just using a long pair of needle nose pliers and get them to work themselves loose. And then that gets it up out of its perch. And then, so basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna give a turn here to the right, however you wanna look at that, and just pull it down. And this is what we're looking at here. And there we can see the fitting there. We'll pull that guy out and transfer everything over, and we'll be ready to go on. Okay, so here's what the directions are talking about. So you take your 10 mil wrench, you take another swing at the fitting here, and you get this backed all the way out, and you can see it's got the fitting there with the O-ring on it, but then it also has this collar. So we're gonna wanna split this collar open a little bit, and then, or break it. So there's what's left of it. I'm gonna take that off. Now we should be able to just slide this off the end, like so. Then we can slide this out of its hole. And then get this secure spring airbag on the ground. It looks like we're gonna have to transfer over that big mounting boot there, transfer that over, put it back in. We'll take that white piece off, pop the airline in the fitting, and put it back together. So as far as putting this on, it just lifts up off the old one and it slides down over the top of the new one. There's a little lip down in here that you need to make sure that the rubber goes over, but you can kind of figure that out. And then you line that hole up with the channel and the top of the new spring, just like so, and you should be able to see through it into the hole. Okay, so now let's pull this out. Okay, that guy's out of there. I'm gonna set this like so. Clean that off with something real quick. All right, let's see if I can film this. So I've got it cleaned off, I've got it started through, and let's just pull it on in. Okay, and then that white mark there was just on the, maybe a 1/4 inch on the outside of the old fitting. So I'm assuming we're gonna go just about that deep on this one. Let's keep going. Okay, so I had to put the phone down and push with both hands. One hand here to get this through this collar, the other one to get it to sink into the fitting, but it went. And then I pulled it back just a little bit, and it doesn't come back very much. You can see it stopped, and that's just about where the old airline was. So based upon that, I'm gonna say that that's good. So now let's get it up into place. Okay, now one of the trickier parts here is that you've got to get this up and twisted to where it locks onto the top of the unibody up there before we worry about getting it in down here, because the top has a locking cam on it here so that it goes up and then it twists, and then that holds it into position on the top. All right, it's hard to see, it's a blind maneuver, there's absolutely no way you can see it. So what I did was I took this alignment nub here, which now is pretty much aligned with this hole, but I lined it up right about back here, I guess, right around here, and then went straight up with the airbag and just kind of felt around till it clunked into its holes. And you give it a quick turn to the right, and it should be, it's locked up there, it's not going to come down. All right, I also unclipped this airline here right from that clip, so I get a little more movement on it. I'll press that in right now before I forget about it. Because without taking that part out, you're gonna struggle to have enough clearance on that airline to get that thing twisted out of there. So now you can do one of two things. You can jack up your suspension here enough to where you can get this to come down into the click down into that piece, or you can turn your car on, turn your ignition on, and see if the compressor will pump up enough, but I'm going to use the jack. Okay, I got my jack up under the old suspension here. Let's close that gap a little bit more. Pretty close. Okay, sorry I couldn't exactly show that, but jacked it up a little bit more and then had to use both hands to press down on this flange. Got it to lock in all the way around. Letting your suspension down with an airbag that has no pressure in it, because I think it creates a vacuum in there. I can mess it up. So I think what I'm going to do, we'll let this down just a skosh. Okay, and you see how that's gonna, see that's sucked in tight already against the body there. I think what I'm gonna do now is I'll go ahead and tighten up that line on the front down there by the compressor. I'll turn on the ignition and let that run just for a little bit. Pumps up that airbag, I'll just let this jack down slowly. Okay, so I got my line back on and tight. Got the electrical connection on. There we go. Had to lower the car down a little bit to get it to pump. And you can see, oh, she's definitely inflating now. We're definitely charged up over here. Okay, wheel on. We're gonna let it down and just see how we look and what the compressor does. Okay. There you can see it pumping it up. All right, for sure you can see that going up. So that's the basic procedure. That's how it's done. You know, this is DIY stuff, how to. I am ASE certified, but I'm not a professional. I don't work in a garage. I'm a home guy. I've done it on my own for years and years. You do it however you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with how I do it, that's fine. Do it your own way. One thing about that air hose is I just took the old air hose out and shoved it right back in the new hole. You could clip off the end of that air hose to make sure you got some fresh meat as it's going into that new fitting. I didn't because the hose looked fine. That's you know, caveat emptor. You do what you want there. But I think it's going to be just fine. I don't think that's where the majority of these leaks ever come from anyway. They just come from these rubber bladders just getting, you know, banged up, beat up over the years, you know, almost 10 years on this one, and it looks to be original, so what can you expect? So the one thing I would say about this type of a job is if you do this and you still have problems to where one side is going down, or maybe on your car both sides are going down and the airbags didn't fix it, your next most likely suspect is going to be that little valve down there where the red and blue lines went into, where the air compressor splits off air. That valve itself might be bad, or you could have a crack in those plastic air lines. Don't be discouraged if this doesn't fix it for you. Just keep looking. Trace it down with some soapy water. You will find it. If you have any questions about this, let me know. I'll do my best to help, and good luck. All right, and remember, when you're putting this panel on here, that the screws with the 10 mil heads go in they go towards the outside of the vehicle, and these cutout gaps here towards the outside of the car. There should be, you should have two of them. You should have one towards the front, and there's the front tire, and then you should have one here further towards the back, towards the middle of the vehicle. Those are the two 10 mils. All the rest of the screws are 8 mils. So I just finished the driver's side airbag on here, and I cheated and I didn't take that panel off of the passenger side over there, all those screws, and undo the airline over there. Instead, what I did was just take a big knife and stab the airbag, and went ahead and took it out, no problem. Got the new one in relatively no problem, until I slid that airline in it and then cam locked it up into place, and then I went around, I don't know, do something. I came back, and I don't know if some residual air pressure had filled that airbag up and had pushed it down to the control arm, and it broke off one of the little tabs that mounts onto that to that control arm on there. And not a big deal, the other tab is there, and I don't think those things do a whole lot anyway. They just kind of keep it in place, seated if there's absolutely no pressure on the vehicle at all. So for example, if you're jacking the car up and the whole tire assembly hangs down, it keeps that airbag centered on that suspension. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal because I've still got the other tab, but just my experience says do it the right way. Take that panel off, undo whatever line you're doing, and let the air pressure bleed off there, and it'll stay off even while you're getting this ready and remounted, repaired. Then you can tighten that airline down up there and let your airbag reinflate under your control, not the way the vehicle just happens to do it. I had the battery unhooked and everything, and there was just apparently some air that bled over into that airbag while I was messing around. So take that for what it's worth. But I think I am going to jack this up. We'll let the suspension hang and make sure that airbag is going to stay in place, because if it doesn't, I may have a problem. Okay, so here it is. I've got the suspension all the way up in the air, and I think it's going to be all right. Right here is where the tab broke off, and here is the other tab right there that's still with us, doing its job, holding everything together. It sure is disappointing. You hate to put new parts in and make an error like that, but it does happen sometimes. So don't do what I did. Make sure you take the airlines off at the compressor or up at that splitter valve, and don't risk it. It's always a good feeling to know that you've got it in and done right, and I don't feel that right now, even though I know it's not going to be a problem. It's just that feeling of a job not as well done as I know it could be. But it's going to be fine, and if it's not, I will make sure that I tell you, and I'll be honest. I'm always as honest as I can be on my videos, and I want you to know. So if something goes wrong, I will be the first to admit it, and hopefully it doesn't.